Welcome to the complete LoreFi investigation. This video serves as a compilation of all of my theories and analysis surrounding the alternate reality game presented from the minds behind game theory. Given that this is the culmination of a content that's progressively released over the course of a year, it will serve as a walkthrough in real time. So, if you're a LoreFi veteran, know that any incorrect assumptions or theories I make in the beginning are based on only the available information at the time, and new theories will be crafted as more is revealed throughout the video. If you're new to LoreFi, then this is the perfect place to start the dive into the investigation. Thanks for watching, and thanks to LoreFi for being a fun ARG to attempt to solve. Now, let's get into a story where danger hides in plain sight. Former host of Game Theory, best known as MatPat, has put his years of experience with stories, lore, and theorizing into creating an alternate reality game, or ARG, for us to solve. This ARG is called LoreFi, an obvious inspiration from lo-fi, and as you might expect, a large element of the ARG is around music. As a channel whose most popular videos center around unveiling the hidden stories embedded into music, I knew this ARG was going to be fascinating. But it's not just music we're dealing with. A trailer and the first official episode has just recently dropped on the new LoreFi YouTube channel, which adds some intriguing animations and even voice lines to the ARG. This is an ongoing experience with new music and animations releasing regularly, but already it is clear that there is a striking darkness lingering around the edges of this otherwise calming atmosphere. So, let's see what theories we can create with the cryptic information we can find so far. The best place to start gathering information is the promotionals for LoreFi that heralded its official arrival. First, we have an appearance in a game theory video about Minecraft. The video screen is repeatedly met with a virus warning that eventually glitches out into a different colored dialogue on the screen, being as follows. Interesting. Most aren't able to catch me infecting their systems. Impressive. Perhaps you can entertain me a little more. Find me before I find you. After this, a duck symbol that seems to serve as the general logo for the LoreFi ARG and potentially this seemingly malicious entity as well, converges onto the screen through a glitchy haze of multiple colored and distorted ducks. From this bit, we already know that we are going to be dealing with some sort of computer virus going forward, one that some sentient entity is behind either creating or controlling given the dialogue. Another mention is in the most recent FNAF game theory, at the time of writing at least, where MatPat himself returns from retirement to let us know about the ARG. He refers to it as
LoreFi. It's the music-based mystery project that I've been working on. Basically, it's what you get if you have Lo-Fi Girl, but you mix in a murder mystery.
Because who hasn't ever wondered that?
I know! But the good news is you don't have to wonder anymore, because episode 1 is finally ready. On one level, you could just study and relax and sleep to the music that you're listening to. In fact, you've been listening to one of the tracks this whole time. And there's gonna be new music releasing every week on our LoreFi Spotify channel. But you know what? If you want to go a level deeper, hidden within some of that music and the videos that exist here on YouTube, there are clues pointing at the story of a missing kid. A missing kid named Gregory.
Gregory? Seriously, Matt?
Yeah, hear me out. Yeah, I got nothing. I just wanted to meme on the name. Good news though, my Gregory, not a robot.
Yeah, sure. For now. I assume you put a link in the description on your way in.
I did indeed, sir. And people should definitely click on it because like I said, there's gonna be new secrets waiting to be discovered every week over on Spotify and a new animation dropping roughly once a month and a half here on YouTube. All as we help a new character, Taylor, solve the deadly game that she accidentally finds herself trapped in.
We get more information about the general theme of the ARG from this, now being aware that a missing kid named Gregory is going to presumably be of big importance, and that it will have a murder mystery style to it. Armed with this info in mind, we can now dive into the actual channel itself. The channel profile sports a yellow duck and headphones, which obviously is reminiscent of the duck logo that appeared in the game theory video. On the banner, we get to see our current protagonist chilling in her room during the dark of the night. The channel description reads as follows. LoreFi is a lo-fi music channel where chill beats and a thrilling story come together. Kick back and enjoy the smooth grooves or unlock secret lore to discover the dark and mysterious conspiracy underneath the surface. Join Taylor as she tries to uncover the mystery behind a sinister computer virus and the threat behind it all. Can they stop it before it strikes? Beats will be the key. an ARG music experience from the minds behind game theory, film theory, food theory, style theory, and GT Live. Welcome to LoreFi. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Music. Who knows what might be hidden there? This reinforces what we already knew about the ARG from the promotional material and solidifies the fact that we will be dealing with some sort of harmful computer virus. It also notifies us that we might want to keep an eye on the Spotify account for LoreFi as well, something we'll talk about later on in this video. For now, the best thing we can do is hop right into the trailer and see what lore we can derive from it. The description of the video is simple, just typing up the mystery as one would expect. The real action takes place in the animation, where we can see the same girl from the banner, Taylor as named in the description, sleeping on her desk before her glowing monitor late in the night. There are tickets with the date 7/13 on the desk with the words Remnant on them, an obvious FNAF reference, but we'll discuss the numerous amount of those already in the series later. And off the top of my head, they appear to be concert tickets, which would most likely make Remnant some sort of band that Taylor enjoys. From the computer screen, we can see numerous music downloads are happening, and eventually a message appears from a user named ARVulpix, saying, OMG, 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 Wing just dropped this month's track and they rock so hard. Download yet? It should be noted that the program Taylor is using to download music is called Grapevine, which shares a name with a song from 1995, but who knows if that's significant at all. Soon after that message appears, the computer starts glitching out and the music we've been hearing in the trailer distorts. The cursor then begins to move entirely on its own, navigating to the webcam and activating it, recording Taylor as she sleeps. It is tempting to wonder if ARVulpix has anything to do with it, given the closeness of her message and the strange behavior of the computer. There is one other haunting element to this trailer besides Taylor getting unknowingly recorded, though. In her trash bin, there is a newspaper with a headline about a local boy going missing. This is almost definitely referring to the Gregory kid that MatPat mentioned in Game Theory. What's interesting is the fact that the newspaper's in the trash bin probably reflects that Taylor doesn't have much connection to Gregory. If the boy was some substantial significance to her, you'd think the newspaper talking about his disappearance wouldn't be carelessly in the trash. Narratively speaking, he must be connected to the story somehow, although how exactly is not yet clear. With all that being said, let's dive into the first official episode. The description reads as follows. It is just another perfectly normal afternoon for Taylor, taking a break from studying and downloading some of her personal favorite lo-fi music tracks. Little does she know, this relaxing music session comes with an uninvited guest. LoreFi is a brand new project from the minds of game theory, film theory, food theory, style theory, and GT Live, combining the calm beats of LoreFi music with the shocking lore we all love to dive headfirst into. Keep your eyes and ears sharp, theorists, you just might find something. Now, you can obviously see the out-of-place capital letters, and assembling them reveals the phrase keep looking, probably just a reference to pay close attention to these videos and their various elements. The uninvited guest mentioned in the description is probable to be whoever's currently recording and or spying on Taylor, for some currently unknown reason. The title of the video is Taylor's Story, but it kicks off with a dark screen and a message from Gregory. Take a listen.
Hello, my name is Gregory Daniels. I'm 12 years old. I live at 3251 Spring Lake Drive, and I have been kidnapped.
It is likely that this is a 911 call or something similar. We now know that Gregory is 12 and where he lives. While multiple Spring Lake Drives can be found, the top result for 3251 Spring Lake Drive is in North Carolina, so it is possible that this is where Gregory lives. And given that he's called a local boy in the newspaper that Taylor had, it's probable that Taylor also lives in the area. After this unsettling message, we get to see the room we'll be in for the remainder of the episode, which is obviously Taylor's bedroom. What is really cool about this scene is we get to learn so much about Taylor, her personality, and her life in general, just from observing her environment. There's a lot to take in here, and a lot of lore revealed, so let's start breaking it all down. There is a general retro aesthetic to a lot of the room, but due to some of the items, such as books and specific board games being released at certain dates, it is most likely this series is taking place close to current day, and Taylor just enjoys the older feel of things. From the various objects in the room, we can tell a few things. Taylor either was or is a dancer, as evidenced by a pair of point shoes and a dance trophy. She's an artist, as evidenced by the drawing with her signature pinned on her board, and of course, she is really into music. Overall, it seems her hobbies lie in the world of the arts, specifically dance, sketching, music, and probably reading, given the amount of books she has on her shelves. It also seems that Taylor is meant to be quite smart, as a paper with an A+ is also prominently displayed on her board. This board actually provides a ton of useful information. We can see a couple of recurring people in the photos, probably Taylor's two closest friends. A note that someone wrote to her says, "Dear Taylor, we hope you feel better soon. The other day we saw your drawing at school and it was sweet. Something found new songs too. Something about it when something." Most likely that whole bit was about finding new songs and talking about it when they or someone gets back. Something peeps, probably signifying multiple people signing off. While we can't be exactly sure when this was written, or every word written in it, it is clear that Taylor wasn't feeling well for some period of time, and her friends, probably the ones shown in the photos, gave her this note. In one photo particularly, we can see the male friend holding the drawing that is also pinned to the board, which could further insinuate that these friends wrote the note due to the finding the drawing mention. Right next to the note is a green disc with a to-do list on it, with a list of fairly normal activities, with one oddity. The words "call dad" are accompanied by the word "not," both of which are substantially scribbled out with red marker. This type of scribbling is seen again in a family photo, where Taylor has drawn a red skull around her dad and scribbled out the rest of his body. This to me very clearly illustrates some sort of enmity towards her father, although we are left to speculate as to why. It is worth noting that there is a blue paper that shows a person peeking through a door, also drawn in red. It is not at all clear if this is meant to represent her father or not, but during the video there is a small section where someone can be seen cracking open Taylor's door and checking on her. She just nods and they go away, so it also might be representing whoever that was, whether it be her mother, father, or someone else. On the topic of Taylor's father, she does get a message on her computer at one point from a user named CoolDad1962, saying, "Hey kiddo, how are you?" This message tells us two things. First, that her dad was probably born in 1962, and that he cares enough to reach out to her and ask how she's doing. This makes it very unclear as to what exactly Taylor's problem with him is, as it doesn't seem like he is particularly disdainful towards her or anything, at least from that message. At the moment, I have to wonder if her parents are separated and Taylor is blaming her father for the divorce. This scenario makes it very possible for her dad to still care about her, yet she will harbor a strong enmity towards him. Speaking of computer messages, there are a few more Taylor receives over the course of the first episode, and they are as follows. From Sephi Love Forever. "Sorry I've been gone. My parents grounded me after they talked to the principal. Just checked out your piece. Great work, but you still need to work on eyes." And then the same message as we saw in the trailer from AR Vulpix. "OMG, OMG, OMG. Wing just dropped this month's tracks, and they rock so hard. Download yet?" From Kate Pro Baby. "So I've been cheerleading all this week, which means I'll be super busy. Mind if take my part of the group project? Thanks." From Timinator. "I know you're unsure about it, but are you sure you don't want to do the next panel?" And finally, from SSJKev93. "Yo, you on?" While it is very unconfirmed, it is possible that a couple of the people represented in these messages, like Kate and Kev, could be the two friends seen in the photos. The AR Vulpix message should be interesting, as it is the same one that we see in the trailer, and the fact that it appears here as well could reinforce the idea that it is somehow a source or agent of the virus that will be prominent to the story. After all, we do see Taylor's webcam turn on for just a bit in the episode, meaning she was being unknowingly recorded again. Perhaps AR Vulpix is some antagonistic force? On this train of thought, it is possible that the title of Taylor's paper gives us a bit of contextual insight as to how this virus is allowed into people's computers. The title of the paper is "The Enigma of Online Connections, Disappearances, and the Unyielding March of Time." Perhaps this is suggesting that risky communication with an online stranger is how this virus is infecting people's devices. It might even mesh with another theme shown in the episode. Taylor has a few butterfly cutouts on her board and a crumpled piece of paper with the phrase "butterfly effect" on it. The butterfly effect is defined as follows. In chaos theory, the butterfly effect is the sensitive dependence on initial conditions in which a small change in one state of a deterministic nonlinear system can result in large differences in a later state. Basically, one small action or event can trickle down to have massive consequences. This is a concept that sci-fi media centering around time travel especially uses a lot. This could very well be insinuating that a lot of this story stems from one or a few core events, which could coincide with the idea of accidentally letting a virus into your computer because you weren't careful enough about online communication. And on the thought process of thematic elements and context clues, another callout I want to make is the coexistence of an angel's halo and a devil's tail in Taylor's signature, and the yin-yang symbol on her window. Yin-yang is a concept that originated in Chinese philosophy, describing an opposite but interconnected, self-perpetuating cycle. This is often portrayed as light versus dark or concepts that are similar, which pairs perfectly with the dichotomy of the angel and demon imagery present in Taylor's signature. Perhaps opposites, the coexistence of light and dark or good and evil, may be a prevalent theme in the story going forward. There's also another paper with writing in the trash, seeming to say "unlogged for weeks, no chat." It's hard to tell what this is referring to without further context, but it certainly seems like someone hasn't logged into a digital account for a while and has been out of communication with Taylor recently. The first episode ends like it began, with a frantic message from Gregory. Take a listen.
What do you want me to do? You want me to... Okay.
If the first time we heard him was indeed a call or a 911 call, this could be a continuation of it, or it could possibly be a response to something different. Either way, it serves as a reminder to Gregory's existence and that he is in great distress. The other video up on the channel is a 24/7 live stream that you can use to listen to the chill beats during basically any activity at any time. The only difference from the first episode is the description, which reads as follows. Don't miss a beat. Welcome to LoreFi. Lo-fi beats for you to relax, study, or theorize to. For any weather, be it raining or just a sunny afternoon. Join Taylor for a pleasant day of downloading her favorite music and relaxing. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy your time with LoreFi. Once again, there are some out-of-place capital letters that come together to spell, this is an ARG. Just a simple indicator as to what the channel is. What is interesting is the line don't miss a beat, which was echoed in the channel description, leading to a probability that the music itself will have secrets within it. Speaking of the music, let's head over to the Spotify account for LoreFi and see what we can find there. Here we get to see all the individual songs and their names, as well as the albums they belong to. I have a link to everything LoreFi in the description, so if you want to check out all the titles and playlist orders for yourself, you can easily go do that. There might be something of significance there. One song of particular interest is called Turned Out, as it has a Morse code sequence at the end of it, which translates into tag you're it. Without further context, it's hard to say exactly what this is implying, but given the importance of a computer virus, it could be relating to how in tag, the person who is it is basically trying to put his condition into someone else. It might be a loose connection, but it could be relating to how the malicious virus in LoreFi works. There are 3 playlist thumbnails on Spotify, one of which is simply Taylor in headphones, but 2 are new images. One shows a farming game on Taylor's computer, suggesting that this is a video game she enjoys, and one shows her sitting with an open notebook. Inside the notebook are the words Music Theory. Now, I will point out that the different colored text and merging ducks from the game theory video each represented one of the color schemes of a theory channel, with a pink color thrown in there as well, and now that the phrase Music Theory is being featured in a MatPat ARG, I'm not saying anything yet, but maybe that's something to keep an eye on. Some of the people over on the Game Theory Discord have been busy trying to crack potential codes embedded into different parts of the series, and if you want updates on that, I've linked the big collaborative Google Doc in the description. One thing they've found is that the spectrograms for some of the songs reveal the duck logo we've become familiar with, and while that isn't really any new information, it is important to know as we might need to use spectrograms to reveal useful information later on. I'll be monitoring the code cracking community and give updates according to the progress. Right now, the Christmas lights, the Rubik's Cubes, the books, and the Connect 4 game are under heavy study to see if they have a crackable code that reveals anything informational. One thing that is noticeable about the series are the various FNAF references throughout, which isn't surprising given that MatPat spent like a decade keeping up with solving the lore of that franchise. The FNAF Easter eggs I was able to catch are as follows. The word Remnant is seen on tickets, a desktop background, and a poster in Taylor's room. Remnant has to do with the sci-fi supernatural parts of FNAF. Purple hues are everywhere, including a purple bear, purple being the signature color of FNAF's main villain, William Afton. The kidnapped boy is named Gregory, who shares a name with the young protagonist of Security Breach. The sun in the yin-yang potentially is a sun and moon reference to the daycare attendant from Security Breach. It might not totally be, but it sort of looks similar to me. There's an album of songs made by Scoot Cawthorn, which is obviously a spoof name for FNAF's creator Scott Cawthon. One's named Ness, which is a reference to the Sans' Ness theory and also MatPat's character name in the FNAF movie. Music Man, one of MatPat's favorite animatronics and a huge meme in the game theory community. And 1983, a very important year to the FNAF lore. These are likely just fun Easter eggs to a franchise that has basically become synonymous with MatPat at this point. And that's where the investigation rests so far. To recap the major plot elements of the lore that we know, Taylor is a young girl who is either in high school or a higher education who enjoys artsy activities such as dance, reading, music, and sketching. She has a core group of friends consisting of one male and one female, and a mother and father for family. She harbors some sort of entity towards her father, with there likely being a tension in the nature of their relationship. Her dad, however, is still trying to reach out to her for communication. Taylor may have unknowingly allowed a dangerous computer virus to be downloaded onto her computer, and now she is occasionally being recorded and watched by some unknown entity for some unknown reason. Meanwhile, a 12-year-old boy named Gregory has been kidnapped, again for an unknown reason and by an unknown force. He seems to be calling out for help, and while the story cohesion would suggest he is going to be tied to Taylor's story in some way, it is not yet evident why or how, or if Taylor even knows Gregory at all. The two main threats and darker parts of the lore currently consist of two main things: the malicious computer virus and Gregory's kidnappers. Thumbnail boasts the menacing presence of this duck logo that keeps appearing, representing this virus that has infected Taylor's computer, as the title of the episode would suggest, controlling the mouse and even recording her while she's unaware. This serves as a precedent for the animated contents of the episode, but before we dive into those, we need to see what waits for us in the description. There is one sentence at the beginning simply stating, "Good night, sweet dreams." Given that the video starts with Taylor leaving her desk and turning out the light, it's safe to assume that this episode takes place while she is sleeping for the evening. Below that, there is some binary code, and when converted to English, it says, "The journey starts on the streets of Chill." This is significant as it is a reference to a song in the LoreFi playlist, the song called Streets of Chill in the Insert Coin Plus playlist. What's significant about this song specifically is that its spectrogram gave us an image that appears to be a map of Indiana and Illinois, somewhat strengthening the Chicago connections from the previous song titles. It is now clear that whatever journey the story of this ARG is taking us on originated somewhere on these streets. Whether it's more connected to Gregory and his kidnapping or Taylor and her story remains unclear at the moment. The next thing to cover in the description are the tags, in which some letters have been replaced by numbers. Specifically, a few I's have been replaced with 1, and a singular G replaced with a 9, when put in order, assembling the number 1911. Now hold that thought as we talk about the tags. See, these numbers were all gotten from words that otherwise make perfect sense as tags for the video, but one word stands out: Leviticus. Leviticus is the third book of the Old Testament in the Bible, the third book of the Torah, and is written by Moses. The name Leviticus originates from Latin and holds its roots within the Bible. In the Latin language, Leviticus translates to referring to the descendants of Levi or Book of the Levites. The English name Leviticus is referring to the priestly tribe of the Israelites, the Levi, and the Greek expression is basically law of the priests, as many of its laws relate to these priests. Now, something significant about Leviticus is that the instructions of Leviticus emphasize ritual, legal, and moral practices rather than beliefs. Much of it has a focus on sacrifice and atonement for sin. If these themes are to be attributed to the story of LoreFi, perhaps these characters are going to go through some kind of journey of atonement. Or, to put a darker spin on things, perhaps some sort of sacrifice is going to be made. Combine the idea of sacrifice with the idea of kidnapped kids from the first episode, and you could concoct some dark speculation. But wait, 1911 can point to a specific chapter and verse within Leviticus. Following this line of logic, we arrive at the words, "You shall not steal, you shall not deal falsely, you shall not lie to one another." How does this relate to LoreFi? Well, it is entirely possible that Taylor is stealing music. Perhaps this immoral action will serve as the inception point for the virus making its way into Taylor's computer, serving as a sort of punishment. The verse also mentions lies and deceit, something we will touch upon when we talk about Taylor's family later. And what's interesting, while I'm not entirely sure if it's connected at all or not, 1911 is also what's considered an angel number, a concept in numerology which you can basically think of as astrology for numbers, that places special importance on certain numbers within pattern repetition held within them. 1911 signifies a spiritual journey that requires a balance of independence, leadership, and spiritual enlightenment. It also has a focus on manifestation and independent creative power. Some have said it is also a representation of unfortunate events or trials on the horizon that you will need the spiritual enlightenment aspects mentioned above to successfully weather through. If this isn't at all relevant reasoning for the 1911 number, then it could be a glimpse into larger thematic elements of the story, something we'll talk about again later. On the topic of wrongdoing, we actually get to see some blood in a playlist on the LoreFi Spotify account, where a broken CD with blood splattered on and around it is displayed. It is not yet entirely clear what transpired to cause this and why, but if this image is meant to be taken literally, some sort of violent struggle occurred around a CD. Perhaps a darker turn for the series is going to dawn on us soon. That's what we got from the description for now, so let's finally move on to the actual content of the episode. It begins with Taylor predictably vibing with her music download software, Grapevine, before she puts the computer to sleep and turns the light off, presumably going to bed and falling asleep shortly after. Not long after Taylor has left, a noise triggers on the computer as the duck logo briefly glitches onto the screen, the mouse now controlled by some unknown entity through the virus. This unknown controller immediately goes to Taylor's email and looks through her communications there. We get to see that Taylor tried participating in an art competition for the album cover of the Remnant band, which solidly confirms the always likely theory that Remnant was indeed a band or musical group that Taylor enjoyed. Someone named Drakenborn87 won the contest, with Alexa Perplexa getting second. And from emails sent to Taylor, we can see that Alexa Perplexa is a username of hers, so our girl just barely missed a win for the competition. There is also an email from AR Vulpix, a familiar name from both the first episode and the trailer. She's emailing an attachment to Taylor and prompting her to check it out. This could potentially tie in with the theories that AR Vulpix is the one instilling the virus into Taylor's computer, given the proximity of her message and the takeover in the trailer, and now her request for Taylor to download something in episode 1 and open an attachment in episode 2. But also, it's likely that Taylor stealing music is what incepted the virus into her computer, whatever you want to think right now. It is all speculative, but it's certainly possible that AR Vulpix is an antagonistic force of some kind in the series. What's even more fun is we get more of a look into Taylor's family drama through an email from her father. The user is called Dad, a name that Taylor had to assign to him, solidifying that this is indeed her father. Interestingly, he is replying to an email that Taylor sent to him with the subject title, "I know what you did." While we don't know what Taylor wrote in that message, we do know from episode 1 that she harbors an enmity towards her father, so she clearly had been accusing him of something that angered her. The message from her father reads as follows: Taylor, I understand you're mad. You say you don't want me around, but please, there's a lot more to this than you think. I know your mother is upset, but that doesn't mean she's completely innocent. There are reasons things ended up like they did. Can we please just talk? I don't like this whole emailing back and forth. I don't feel like I can say what I need to say through this. Just give me a chance. Your father. So this can basically be taken one of two ways. The father is being honest and his words are the trustable point of view, or his perspective is skewed and he is either actively deceptive or unreliable. He is placing partial blame for whatever negative events went down, which I think is becoming probable to be a separation or divorce of some kind, as I predicted in episode 1, on Taylor's mother. I think it remains to be seen if this is definitely true or if Taylor's father has a faulty perspective. Furthermore, there's a non-zero chance that this character is malicious. The email seems to be insinuating he wants to meet up with Taylor, and depending on his level of good nature, perhaps this is for nefarious reasons of some sort. After all, we already have one missing kid from this town named Gregory Daniels. Or he is a sincere father and is simply trying to reconnect with his kid who may have a warped perspective of the events surrounding her family and is wrongly placing all of her disdain onto him. Perhaps the mother is even the true antagonist. In any case, the entity controlling the computer closes out the email and continues on to a messenger application. Here we get to see Taylor's responses and the continued discussion to the messages we saw her receive in the first episode. These messages include AR Vulpix asking if she had to download a new track from someone called Wing, her dad asking if she had read her email, and the user called Kate Probable convincing her to do their work in the group project. This little exchange displays some of Taylor's personality, how she is afraid of upsetting this person and is submissive in taking over what is their fair share of the project. Their profile also indicates that they are cheerleading for a high school, which would put Taylor in that same age range. Something I didn't mention before is that Taylor's email address reads SummerTay89. And if 89 is her birthday year, as is most probable, if she is like 16 or 17, which is the common high school age, it would perfectly place the date of LoreFi in the 2005 or 2006 year that many people have theorized it to take place in. Another conversation is with Steffi Love, who gives Taylor feedback on her art and asks her how the recent competition went. Finally, she agrees to help out Kev by leaving a comment on his canvas and contemplates doing the next panel with Timmy Nader. These messages give further personality to Taylor's friend group and, as mentioned earlier, a closer look into her own persona and behaviors. Keep in mind, what is especially creepy about all this is that whoever's behind the virus can see all of this right now. Taylor's private life and entire world is being invaded, and it seems that she has no idea that it's taking place. The entity in charge of the computer opens up her files next, showing off some of what Taylor has stored on her computer, such as these familiar sounding files and some school papers and projects. Going to login, all of Taylor's passwords are displayed, and upon seeing them, our mystery controller compresses Taylor's documents, library, and photos into a zip file. They then go to our browser and put the backup data found there into a zip file as well. In our recently visited section, we see a grapevine profile belonging to Wing of Disharmony, likely the Wing referred to earlier. Armed with the password and zip files, the entity controlling the computer opens up the command line and connects to this IP address. They then enter the following commands before disconnecting. You can see that they use the mount command, which is a command to attach a file system to a directory. When you mount a file system, you make the file system accessible to the system's users by associating it with a specific directory, known as the mount point, in the directory tree. You can see that this is what's done here, followed by a couple of copy-paste demands. For some reason, whoever's behind the virus wanted this specifically done to certain parts of Taylor's information, and proceeds to erase the easily detectable evidence of her ever doing so after finishing. And that's where the episode ominously ends. The key takeaways of the lore and larger story at play are really within the friends and family dynamic that Taylor has going on, as the more overtly sinister side of things remains shrouded in mystery for now. The description has changed to include a new phrase assembled by picking out capitalized letters that are misplaced throughout the paragraph. This time, the word we get is DTIYYPC. Obviously, we aren't done yet as this is completely unreadable. Turns out this is a cipher, and when shifted correctly, it spells out the word sinner. Now, in the last episode, we talked about the book of Leviticus and a Bible verse that talked about the evils of stealing and deception. So the concept of sinning is something that has been previously established in LoreFi. I think this further establishes the likely idea that Taylor is stealing music. At first glance, it may seem that nothing huge has developed in comparison to the original livestream, but several details around the room have changed. For instance, some relatively inconsequential updates include the fact that a photo has fallen to the floor and her remnant poster has begun curling, both details that lend themselves to the fact that a little time has passed since last livestream. An interesting change is the newspaper in the trash can. You'll recall that in the trailer there was a headline about a local boy going missing, which was a reference to the 12-year-old Gregory and served as a confirmation that the boy lived relatively nearby Taylor. This time we have a headline from the Daily Herald reading, "Missing Boy's Backpack Found." This isn't a lot of information, but either the police and investigators found the backpack or someone else found it and called it in. But either way, this could be a hint towards the circumstances in which Gregory was kidnapped. If his backpack being found is at all significant discovery, it is probable that he is believed to have had it on his person when he disappeared. This could suggest he was kidnapped either to or from school, or when he was out with his backpack supplies for some other reason. Beyond that, there isn't much else we can glean from the newspaper headline. Some new music-related objects are now scattered around the room, including a book on music, a music quiz sheet, and some sheet music of a song we know from the LoreFi playlists. Out of her backpack, a book title is visible, and it turns out that it is the yearbook from W. Dixon High School, which in my view confirms Taylor is in high school and that she goes to the same one that Kate Probable does. To the bottom left there is a color pad, which actually serves as a type of code, and when deciphered, it provides us a link. The link is kind of a troll, but I suggest you give it a try. The significance is that the word anidophobia means fear of ducks, specifically the fear that a duck is always watching you. This relates back to the logo of LoreFi and of course the symbol of the virus. Her to-do list has been changed as well. It now reads music homework, which probably confirms that she's in some sort of music class or lessons, hence the music-related papers and books that are everywhere. The to-do list also says backup computer. An interesting pairing with this is a book that is a manual for a new computer. This shows that Taylor is concerned enough about something to have plans to have a backup computer, which I believe lends itself to Taylor getting up to sketchy things online. She wouldn't be preparing like this in advance if she didn't have reason to be concerned, probably stemming from her own actions. Her corkboard has a tuned out paper with some Morse code on it that says "Tag You're It," just like the song of the same name. This brings up an interesting conversation as to what is and isn't canon in the LoreFi universe. Like, this is clearly Morse code, but are we supposed to assume that Taylor intentionally wrote it that way? Are we supposed to believe that the music, which we know is in universe thanks to Taylor's computer displaying some of the song names, and of course the references to the song titles in other places, canonically has the spectrograms and code sequences in them as well? Or are we to assume that's just for us, the players from a different universe to interact with and isn't literally in the fictional universe? We already know that the framing of a YouTube channel isn't canon, as the descriptions and whatnot are told through a narrator, and obviously directly advertise the Theory channels and the writers and creators of the series. I also think the view we have of Taylor isn't supposed to be some separate camera or whatever due to what was just previously said, so there are already a couple of things we have to accept as not canon while investigating this series. That said, are the codes that are embedded into the songs and objects around the room canonically in universe, or are they simply for us to solve in order to find some hints towards the story? Let me know what you think about that in the comments. Taylor's computer is now displaying several things with the word Maxton in front of it in the Grapevine software, including virus, antivirus, and keygen. Now, these all line up with the themes of viruses that are heavy in this series, but the somewhat obscure word is keygen. A keygen is a computer program that generates a product licensing key, such as a serial number necessary to activate for the use of a software application. I think this is yet another tie-in to Taylor stealing music or potentially other online wrongdoing, and using software from Maxton to accomplish it. Perhaps most intriguing is that there is now a green sticky note on her board that says "Don't look" with a picture of her window. The reasoning for this is not yet clear, but it gives off substantially creepy vibes in my opinion. Hopefully we'll get further context for that soon. Maybe Taylor is feeling watched from the outside or something? That's all I really got from the new livestream for now, so let's move on to the songs that have continued to be released. The most prominent ones that I haven't mentioned in a video yet include Menu Beat and This Mess of Letters. This is a message in base 64, and when translated to English, it gives the second Bible verse to make an appearance in LoreFi, Matthew 12:36-37. This verse reads, "But I tell you that everyone will have to give account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken. For by your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned. This one focuses on speaking empty words, which could link back to how the last verse mentioned lies. Maybe Taylor is building a web of deceit, or maybe this one could be talking about the actions of her father or mother or some other character for that matter. Another highlight from the verse is the idea of a coming judgment, which could be getting at the fact that Taylor is suffering the consequences of her wrongdoing if she did indeed get the virus as a result of stealing music. The second song we'll discuss is Menu Beat, which has something very interesting at the end of it. When slowed and reversed, it sounds like this.
From Chicago's NBC5. This is NBC5 News at 10.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being with us. I'm Derek Blakely.
And I'm Natalie Martinez, in for Anna DeBlantis. Police aren't divulging much.
The fact that this is from Chicago further strengthens all the previous connections to the Chicago area that have been present in the series thus far. The final line of police aren't divulging much is most likely referring to the missing Gregory case, at least in this universe, although I suppose it is possible there is some other investigation going on that we don't yet know. It is interesting that we get a snippet from an actual news report though, so we'll have to keep an eye out for similar things in the future. First, let's talk about the third main episode release, a short video titled Ignorance is Bliss. The thumbnail is one of the more startling ones, with Taylor backed up against a set of purple lockers, and the shadow of what appears to be a man holding a knife or a sharp object into the air, the positioning of the shadow clearly indicating malice or harm to be the man's intentions. That, and the fact that Taylor looks very concerned here. The weird thing is, nothing like this occurs in the episode's animation at all. There is indeed a stressful scenario happening in proximity to the lockers, but certainly no attack by a man with a weapon is seen. This leads me to believe that what we're seeing in the thumbnail may need to be taken less literally, at least for now. This type of representational imagery for cover art is seen commonly in books and comic books, depicting scenes that haven't literally happened but represent the scenario at hand. I think this thumbnail is simply meant to remind us of the fact that Taylor is in danger at the hands of a, as of yet, unseen enemy, perhaps signifying that the urgency of the danger is ramping up a bit. Turning to the description, we get the sentence, "It's too bad it doesn't last long." This is undoubtedly referring to the phrase ignorance is bliss, the title of the episode, and following up on it. Ignorance is bliss means that lacking knowledge can be conducive to increased happiness. For instance, let's say there is a very real threat to your life that just narrowly didn't kill you. If you were never aware that the threat existed, you wouldn't have felt anything negative. You would have just lived your life as though nothing had ever been wrong. But if you had always been aware of this potential threat, it would have no doubt caused you intense anxiety and fear. This is just a simple hypothetical, but I think it gets the point across. Not knowing something isn't always a good thing, but it can be a happier thing. The rest of the description centers around code cracking, which I'll openly admit I have way less interest and talent in solving, and as such, I leave the more advanced code decryption to the investigators contributing to the big LoreFi Discord Google document. I'm currently displaying the process and explanation on screen. The answer that can be ultimately derived are three words: DuPage, Cook, and Will, which are all counties around the area of southwest Chicago as seen on the map here. This shows setting consistency and perhaps relates to the journey that has been hinted at. The episode's animation content begins with Taylor leaning against a set of purple lockers in what is probably her high school hallway, listening to music on her headphones as she so often does. Taylor is seen nearby more butterfly imagery and shadows of people passing by move across the surface of the lockers. Out of seemingly nowhere, the screen darkens as a message from none other than Gregory begins to play, turning out to be the bleakest moment in LoreFi so far. This is the message.
Been kidnapped. And I confess that I... Please, just let me go home. Please, I'm begging. No.
The beginning of the message is what we heard at the start of the very first official episode of LoreFi, so clearly this is an extenuation of that one. He seems to be being forced into confessing something, and since we have very little information on what it is he is meant to be confessing, I'm not sure if whatever it is would be even true or not, or some manipulation by his captors. Interestingly, before the video ends, a distorted voice is heard saying, "Confess." This happens after a moment of silence, indicating that I think it may be separate from the original Gregory recording, which then lends itself to the idea that is meant to be said directly to Taylor. The episode ends abruptly immediately following this, along with a gasp from Taylor. The whole segment being so focused on coercing a confession does link back to the thematic material already present in the series, that being the themes of sinning, of stealing, and deceiving that have been hinted at through ciphers and biblical references. As of yet, it can be merely speculated as to what is needing to be confessed. Our determined knowledge of wrongdoing on Taylor's part is currently limited to the high probability that she is stealing music to download, and we don't really have any solid proof that Gregory is doing anything that would merit any kind of dramatic confession. An interesting thing to bring up that could potentially be a point of contention is whether or not Taylor was legitimately hearing this or is experiencing some sort of memory or trauma. Either way, her peaceful music listening was interrupted. As I can see it, there are two ways of approaching this scene. Either Taylor is very aware that she is guilty of something and is directly connected to the Gregory case, given that she can recall his words, or somehow that audio was in amongst her lo-fi music that she suddenly heard. Personally, I find the latter to be far more likely. You can physically see that she was substantially startled, which could be explained by a panic attack or something adjacent, but I think it just makes a little more sense to be a reaction to something occurring in real time. Perhaps what convinces me most of this are some evidence points that appear later in the third iteration of the 24/7 livestream. The fact that Taylor now seems to be very interested in the Gregory case, and the fact that Sephi is asking why a kidnapped kid is in her song. Up until now, newspapers concerning Gregory's disappearance have been lazily tossed in Taylor's trash, which is not indicative of someone who is invested in a case, which has led me to believe she hadn't been all that connected to Gregory prior to his disappearance despite living nearby. So why the change of heart now? Why does she suddenly care enough to replace a movie tape with a tape on information surrounding Gregory? Why pin the newspaper on her corkboard now? Something had to have happened, and I think Taylor and Sephi have both heard this bleak message from Gregory and are now trying to figure out what to do about it. The question now becomes, who exactly was this message intended for? Was it meant to be directly received by Taylor, or is Taylor getting wrapped up in someone else's mess? If Sephi and Taylor indeed heard the same thing, then that does make it seem as though it was less of a specifically targeted message to either one of them, unless they were both the intended recipients, of course. Technically, we don't have any proof that both Taylor and Sephi heard the same thing, just that they both have encountered audio concerning the kidnapped kid. This episode was good for plot progression as Taylor is now invested in the disappearance of Gregory, Sephi is wrapped up in whatever conspiracy is going on here, and we have more of a sense of urgency surrounding the danger that has been primarily lurking in the shadows. From there, the next installment comes in the form of a fall 2024 collection. There isn't a lot new here, as it is just a collection, and the messages that appear in our computer I'll talk about in the next section when I cover the communications Taylor has recently been engaging with. One notable thing is that Taylor's bear stuffed animal is propped to be looking out the window, which is perhaps related to Taylor's note to "don't look." On the subject, I don't think I mentioned in last video, there is a car and a shadowy figure that occasionally slowly pass by Taylor's window, which may be of some significance. Again, this could all be to indicate that Taylor is not only being watched from her web camera, but also physically through her window. This creates a terrifying situation where Taylor is effectively being stalked from all angles, whilst in the safety of her own home. The next bulk of exciting additions to the lore comes with the third iteration of the 24/7 livestream, where we can see plenty of new messages on Taylor's computer, some changes around the room, and new clues hidden within the songs, as well as a weirdly coincidental rabbit hole I fell down amidst my investigation into LoreFi. The third livestream adds several interesting points of discussion to LoreFi. The description now has a fancy and foreboding font where it says we hope you enjoy your time with LoreFi, and one of the tags said Prologue End, indicating that the series has just been getting started and things will only ramp up from here. There is a string of base 64 text that when deciphered reads, "You think you have a chance? Very well, let the games begin, sinner." The word sinner is a callback to when we found that word hidden in a code from a prior episode. At this time, it is difficult to understand who is speaking here or why, or who the intended recipient of this even is, but if I had to guess, I would say this is a message from our hacker to Taylor. My reasoning for this stemming from the fact that a message of a similar taunting nature can be seen in the console at one point on Taylor's computer, when it's taking actions without her interference, this one saying, "You want to play in the big leagues? Let's play." Interestingly, this console also has "duck duck duck goose" printed onto it. This makes me think back to the "tag your it" message from earlier on, in that it is strengthening the idea that Taylor is the latest target of this virus and whatever consequences that entails. Based on these new messages, if I had to guess, Taylor accidentally provoked something she shouldn't have, probably by stealing the music, and is now trapped amongst an ugly situation. It is still exceedingly unclear how Gregory's kidnapping ties into anything going on with Taylor, the hacker, and her presumed stalkers. Around the room, we can see that more stuff has fallen off of the corkboard, and several things have been moved around or tampered with, displaying another at least minimal lapse of time since last stream. As mentioned earlier, one of the biggest things the current room tells us is that Taylor is very invested in the Gregory case. She also has stuffed her backpack with what appear to be art canvases, which goes along with her talent for art and her ambitions surrounding it. A particular point of interest is their much more visible newspaper concerning Gregory, which reads, Headline, Missing Boy's Backpack Found. Body, Police still stumped. Backpack of Gregory Daniels missing since last December. Has been found near Mallard Lake this weekend. Hanover Park Police Department shut down the area and are continuing the search, hoping to find more evidence that might help find the missing 12-year-old. While the HPPD did not comment on if they have found anything else, a representative stated that officers are being thorough. According to sources, and we can't see any more of the article from that point on. We now know that Gregory was kidnapped in the month of December, and given that there's absolutely no snow or sign of cold outside of Taylor's window, something that should be present in Illinois during the winter months, and the fact that a yearbook sitting on Taylor's desk includes teachers and friends writing sentiments about seeing her next school year, I think it is safe to say a substantial amount of time has passed since Gregory first disappeared, specifically a few months. The fact that his backpack was recovered could indicate that he was taken while on his way either to or from school or something similar, as that is when a 12-year-old is most likely to be wearing a backpack. It being left behind also probably shows that he was abducted quite quickly. Meanwhile, Taylor's computer is still moving on its own via the hacker, and we can see it view several online news articles concerning Gregory. We only get to see the headlines, but here we get confirmation that Gregory has indeed been missing for months, that police are baffled and have little to no leads, and that there was at least initially some discourse over whether or not he had been kidnapped or simply ran away. Interestingly, Taylor's blinds are much more closed than before, and there is a sock over her webcam. This must suggest that Taylor is now at least somewhat aware that she is being watched through her webcam and window, and she has taken small steps to resist against that. We also have already seen that she has plans to either fix or replace her computer, as well as in past installments. You might notice that there is a blue note with some Morse code on it on Taylor's corkboard, which leads to another troll link. If you want, go check it out, I won't spoil it. More relevant Morse code messages can be seen when the lights hanging in her room flash. Two distinct messages can be deciphered from this blinking Morse code. Just one off and goblet. If these are the intended words, I am not sure as of yet how they correlate to anything. Now we get to the various messages that appear on Taylor's computer throughout the stream. Like we mentioned before, Sephi is hearing Gregory in her songs just as it seemed Taylor did in Ignorance is Bliss, and we get to witness her panicking, then calming herself down through the messages. Strangely, we see I just checked and no, not on the song, which I can only take to mean that the Gregory audio isn't on the official song, and this is a more of a personalized copy type scenario. Now we have to grapple with the question as to why both Taylor and Sephi are being targeted to hear this, and why at least Taylor is being prompted to confess something. Sephi calms herself down by offering the solution that someone named Wing is pranking them, to which we see that Taylor has friended Wing of Disharmony, who is probably the user Sephi was referring to. There hasn't been much interaction between them as of yet. On the topic of messages, something I missed from the second iteration of the livestream is that some messages from Kate would glitch out to display different text. For instance, OMG, my section looks great, thank you, turns into, hey, I don't want to be that person, but I haven't gotten my section from you. Also, received my section from you, thanks, turns into, I never got it. This could honestly explain why there seemed to be some weirdness between them in the third livestream, despite the fact that it seems Taylor did indeed cave in and do her part of the project. I'm going to be honest, this is really weird. I do not understand why the hacker, who is the only one I can imagine to be capable of altering the messages Taylor is receiving, would be doing this of all things. Like, to what end? What purpose does this serve? At this point in time, it seems LoreFi as a series is more concerned with setting up questions than answers, and if these past few months have indeed served as a type of prologue, I suppose that makes sense. The last thing I want to talk about in this video is a rabbit hole that I fell down whilst investigating LoreFi, something that I have come to believe isn't actually connected to anything, but is such a crazy coincidence that I need to bring it up. So it all started with this message Taylor receives from Kev that says, "You good? What does base 64 Timmy mean?" Naturally, the first thing I did was run in all caps Timmy through a base 64 translator. Given that Timmy starts as such a coherent and recognizable English word, I opted to encode into base 64 rather than decode as we have historically done throughout this series. This results in Vane TV K equals. Now, admittedly, K equals doesn't neatly fit, but Vane being an actual word and TV being short version for television, I decided to throw the phrase into the search bar and see what I could find. I actually found a website to a death metal band called Vane.fm, whose website link possesses the exact phrase of Vane TV. Upon looking into this band, I found that they split into another called Fleshwater, whose logo is none other than a creepy duck, and they even have a couple of songs with the word virus in the title. Now, given that I cannot scrounge up any other additional evidence to support that this is in any way the correct line of research, or how any of it could possibly connect to LoreFi, I'm currently convinced that this was all just a wild coincidence. Furthermore, both Vane and Fleshwater's inception as bands take place years after LoreFi is supposed to be taking place, meaning that the Base 64 Timmy thing that Kev is asking Taylor about cannot canonically be tied to either band, so if it were to be some sort of clue, we'd have to have an entire separate explanation for the in-universe meaning of the message, while deciphering the more meta storytelling that could only be meant for the audience to glean potential information from. All this makes it seem incredibly unlikely that Vane or Fleshwater are at all connected to LoreFi storytelling, but it was a funny rabbit hole to go down nonetheless. That being said, I would then have no idea what this message about Base 64 Timmy is supposed to mean and why Kev is asking Taylor about it, suggesting some prior communication Taylor sent over to him concerning Base 64 Timmy. Another thing I actually do want to mention before closing out this video is a recent spectrogram that appeared in the song Loading Screens displays a 2 of hearts from a deck of cards. This could potentially relate to certain cartomancy superstitions around playing cards, such as the idea that a 2 of hearts represents the concept of love and harmony, or a deep connection between two people, usually relating to some form of love. Given that this series has already used several religious, biblical, and superstitious allusions to give clues to the thematic material of the story, I think this is a fine way of interpreting the spectrogram. Perhaps it is meant to portray the relationship between two people in the story. Perhaps the rift that needs to be healed between Taylor and her father, perhaps a bond between Taylor and one of the various other characters that have appeared only by username, and maybe even a kinship between Taylor and Gregory somehow. We'll begin with the description as we always do, this time containing a string of letters that exist as a cipher and can be decoded by using QWERTY as a key. It translates into the message, "You cannot wipe me away, I am still in control." This line must be meant to be taken from whoever's behind the virus infecting Taylor's computer, as we know from previous installments that she has become privy to the fact that her webcam is being used to spy on her among other things. This sentence serves as a foreboding warning, as Taylor may think that she has taken steps to subdue the hacker, but in reality, they still have influence over her devices and perhaps continue to stalk/watch her in some way. Getting into the actual animation now, we see that this stream differs greatly from the previous streams that we've been deriving lore from. Instead of a full room shot, we now have an angle that allows us to see Taylor's desk and window with the accompanying parts of a corkboard and wall. Taylor is determinedly typing for most of the stream, although we can't see what it is she is working on due to the glowing nature of her monitor. Another action Taylor periodically takes for a noticeable amount of time is stopping to look out her window. Now, I am fully ready to believe that she could just be doing this as a chill break in between typing, viewing the outdoors, but a part of me wants to believe that this is a part of her newfound vigilance and keeping an eye on whether or not she is being stalked. In prior episodes, we see that the blinds become more closed and that a stuffed animal is set as a sort of guard staring out the window, and this combined with the fact that a shadowy figure has slowly walked past on occasions before, I wonder if Taylor is regularly checking the outdoors to see if anyone is creepily watching her. One of the most noticeable lore additions in the frame is that the entirety of the front page of the Daily Herald newspaper is now visible. It reads in full, "A pack of Gregory Daniels, missing since last December, has been found near Mallard Lake this weekend. Hanover Park Police Department shut down the area and are monitoring the search, hoping to find more evidence that might help in finding the 12-year-old. While the HPPD would not comment on if they have found anything else, a representative stated officers are being thorough. According to sources, Gregory Daniels' case went cold not a month into investigation. Whether or not this evidence will help breathe new life into the case is yet to be seen. Sources also report that Daniels may not be the only victim, and that other cases may be linked. When asked, the HPPD representative denied the possibility and said, "The HPPD is working around the clock to protect your families. Our community should not panic over this rare occurrence." It's unsettling that Gregory's case went cold not even a month into the investigation, and while it could be completely normal if there's absolutely no leads, I think, given the narrative, it does imply a certain level of police incompetence or even corruption within the department. I know that's a big leap to make, but given the nature of stories like this, I can't help but get suspicious of the cops. I think this suspicion is strengthened by the fact that Taylor wrote in red "liars" at the end of the paper, where the police claimed to be working diligently to protect the community and denied the possibility that there are other victims and cases linked to this one in some way. This heavily implies that there are victims beyond just Gregory Daniels out there and being affected by whatever the malicious force is that's looming over the background of this series, while also indicating that the police are not being truthful with the public for some reason. They could just be keeping certain information private for the sake of the investigation, but I don't know, something feels off here. Also, something to note about the paper is that it's clearly been ripped and taped back together. We can see that Taylor has now discarded her webcam entirely, a smart move given her current situation, and there is a new drawing of the mysterious figure that keeps appearing on the sticky notes posted on the board, giving us a smug expression and a wave. It is still unclear who exactly this is meant to represent or why Taylor portrays them in this way, but they have appeared in this style drawing in most videos. The remnant tickets that have been pinned to the board for a while have the dates 7/13 and 6/22, and when someone in the livestream chat mentioned this difference, the LoreFi account called it out as a good observation, implying that there is a certain level of importance as to why Taylor has tickets for two different dates pinned to her board. As of yet, I don't know what that significance is, but we should be on the lookout for it because it is supposedly there somewhere. On the topic of messages that the official LoreFi account was dropping in the live chat, they left what was supposed to be a hint for us before parting. That being, oh, I got a weird message in my DMs. It says, I see you, you cannot hide. If you think you can save anyone, you are wrong. Similar to the description, this feels like dialogue taken from the hacker. At the moment, it feels reasonable for this message to be directed at Taylor, as I have been assuming the description messages have been, and as such, this shows how the hacker is both very aware of Taylor's actions and is directly correlated to the harm of others. As usual, they are taunting and cocky, and whatever plan or goal they are trying to enact most likely involves the disappearance of Gregory and the other victims that are implied in the newspaper that we currently know nothing about. Small details I noticed is that the remnant poster has been fixed and is no longer drooping as seen in previous iterations. Her to-do list is still reminding her to back up the computer, and Taylor has a pretty relaxed vibe going on, a small smile even consistently being seen. One of the most interesting parts of this stream, though, is the new communications we get to see Taylor engage in with the user Wing of Disharmony. Wing is a recurring character and someone we see the cast mention a few times. Wing drops music tracks, and the user AR Vulpix gets quite excited over it, and the person that Sephi suspected of having pulled a prank over on them after they encountered Gregory's message as a result of the music they downloaded from them. Taylor has managed to get Wing to accept the friend request from her, and in this stream we get to see what they've been messaging back and forth. The first volley goes as follows. Wing, let me get this right. You message me accusing of putting a virus on your PC and then you want my help? F all the way off. Taylor, no. I'm not accusing you of the virus. It's just attached to a friend's song you uploaded. Wing, sounds like your friend put a virus on your computer. I do not upload viruses. Taylor, okay, sorry. I didn't mean to make you mad. I'll go. This reveals that Wing is unaware of the virus and absolves them of malicious intent for now. Their characterization appears aggressive and very uninterested in the prospect of wasting any time. This conversation also shows that Taylor may have received the message/virus from her friend rather than the other way around as many theorists have proposed. The next group of messages reads, Wing, you're right. There's something here. I have no idea how this got on my PC. Looking into it, but I would start wiping my computer if I were you. Taylor, OMG, okay. I backed up all my files on CDs. Wing, I can't tell exactly what it's doing, but this bastard is stubborn. I heard the message through. Creepy. Doesn't seem urgent right now, but definitely do that wipe. Taylor, I thought I was going crazy. I'll do it tonight then. Wing, tight. I'm going to keep screwing around with this thing. I might be able to follow up this bastard back to the source. When your PC is clean, start a group IM with you and your friend. Taylor, you got it. So, this reveals that this contagious computer virus, at least concerning the cast of characters that we've been introduced to thus far, originated with Wing, spread to Sephi, and then to Taylor as a result of them downloading and sharing the song or music it was somehow attached to. We currently have no point of reference as to how Wing got it, but now they have also heard the message and have been, in a sense, roped into the investigation. I think anyone who knows about all this or has been infected is not safe by any means, and as previously stated, that list currently includes Taylor, Sephi, and Wing. Wing is even trying to trace the virus back to its source, so it will be very interesting to see what develops as a result of that quest. And now, for the new character that single-handedly breaks the lore wide open. Taylor's pet hamster, officially named Cheeks by the team behind LoreFi. The cute little guy infinitely chews on a stub of carrot and looks at Taylor curiously whenever she gazes out the window. A great addition to the story, if you ask me. The last thing I want to talk about in this video is the reorganization of the LoreFi YouTube channel. Playlists are now clearly separated into prologue and chapters, as well as a music video list and the complete story playlist. The description to the prologue reads, watch the events that lead to Taylor to find herself as the target of a looming threat. While the description to chapter 1 says, Taylor is just an average kid at the turn of the millennium, but her life takes a dark turn when a mysterious virus finds her way onto her computer. Now someone is after her, and the clock is ticking. We already knew that Taylor was in high school, but this solidly confirms that she is under 18 due to the usage of the word kid, and it states plainly that the series takes place close to the year 2000, probably around 2005 or 6 as most theorists believe. It is interesting that the description refers to the virus as a her, and I'm not currently sure if this is just a classic case of referring to a non-living entity with female pronouns, or if it is implying that the big bad behind this is a female. It's been too long since I last covered the alternate reality game produced from the minds behind game theory, and a lot of story development has happened since our last video on it. We have a lot to cover, so make sure to watch until the end to catch the secret lore that I've been delivered. We last discussed the debut of LoreFi's first chapter, off the heels of the prologue that served as the beginning of the series. As such, it's best we start with Chapter 2, known as the Beats to Fall Asleep To stream. But before we do that, there's something I need to address. The official LoreFi account commented on my last video, taunting me with the fact that I almost had the virus timeline right, but not quite. Now, in that video, I speculated that Sephi had the virus first before sharing it with Taylor, based off this section of dialogue we get from Wing. This is obviously slightly off given LoreFi's response to the video, and we will get into the virus timeline revision later when more pertinent information surrounding it is brought up. As for now, we get to observe Taylor peacefully sleeping in her bed, like the totally not creepy watchers and listeners that we are. The description of this video, as per usual, contains a cipher, this time translating into the ominous phrase of, "I found you." Now, it is technically ambiguous as to who the speaker and receiver of this dialogue is, but reason would suggest this is the hacker communicating to Taylor, at the very least in a meta sense, if not directly. Perhaps this is signifying that the hacker is aware of her physical location now, which brings some scary implications attached to it if that's the case, especially with the fates that have befallen Gregory and the other missing people. Cheeks is once again present in this video, happily sleeping alongside Taylor, and what is perhaps the most earth-shattering bit of lore yet, a drawn picture of Cheeks in a cowboy hat can be seen in the room. A report card belonging to Taylor lies in plain sight, displaying her last name as Murray, and definitely debunking any idea that her and Gregory were immediate relatives, as his last name is Daniels, although I never found that theory to be likely anyways. Her report card boasts primarily good grades, except for the outlier of a C in verbal communication. Perhaps our girl is a bit shy around orally presenting and communicating, which is honestly pretty relatable. Something to point out is the continuation of the motif of strange shadow-like people appearing on sticky notes, one of them peeking into view once again. The most exciting thing about this episode is the series of messages that are exchanged between Sephi and Wing while Taylor snoozes, those being as follows. "Hey Sephi, you're the friend of the virus in their song. You must be the guy who infected Peep's computers. Okay, it's gonna be like this, huh? Like what? Drop the attitude. I got infected just like everyone else. Sure. OMG. Gonna guess Perplex is asleep, but tell me you wiped your computer. Why? I don't have it. Or is there another reason? It was attached to your song. Just listen to it, and if you get the creepy message, you have it. My file is clean. Look for a copy on your computer or a CD or, heck, a floppy disk if anyone still uses them. ... Unbelievable. You still use floppy disks. Some of us can't afford burners. Just check and then wipe your computer. Heck, no. Wipe it." We can see the stubbornness in these two serving as conflicting personalities that I think make for some entertaining dialogue exchanges. Just for clarity's sake, Perplexo is referring to Taylor as that is the name some of her online accounts use. This conversation makes a couple of things clear. Wing is also infected just like Sephi and Taylor, and he wants to get rid of this virus as quickly as possible, as well as that it's probable Sephi's a music creator too. On this note, the official LoreFi account was teasing Theorists to discover the true name of Sephi, and I fully believe that the theorist known as K-Wire solved it. In Discord, she pointed out the following. There's a signature in Taylor's yearbook from Ayana. The song Fatal Exception is released by Ayana Gray. Wing mentions your song when talking to Sephi. I don't know how it took me that long to notice that. She also gave me a cookie, so thanks, K-Wire. So Sephi and Ayana can now be used as interchangeable character names, and we can also be sure that Sephi is indeed a music creator. Given this discovery, I think now is the best time to reframe my idea of the timeline of the virus. Last time I was close, as LoreFi themselves admitted as much, so this should require only minor tweaking in the general understanding. Here are the primary important things that we know. Ayana/Sephi created the song Fatal Exception. She was trying to reassure Taylor in a message that the situation wasn't her fault, signifying that Taylor probably came into contact with this before her. Taylor also questions Wing about the whole thing due to the fact that he was the one who uploaded the song. Wing is disbelieving at first, but to his surprise discovers there is indeed a virus attached to the song on his computer as well. As such, it seems most logical that the virus somehow got attached to the song when Wing was uploading it to Grapevine, and not intentionally placed there by either him or Sephi. This probably means he was marked by the virus first, but didn't notice it until Taylor began interrogating him. Taylor got infected after downloading the thing, obviously, and then Sephi straight up says that she doesn't have the virus. All of that being said, let's progress to the third chapter, this one known as the gaming/coding stream. As we are well familiar with by now, the description holds a cipher, this time translating to 3 pieces combined together with the right heading. Altogether shall reveal the beginning of the end. Cryptic and intriguing, but perhaps will make more sense once we get into the meat of the episode. Once again, Taylor receives some messages from her friends, the most relevant one being that of Kev saying that he doesn't have the virus on his end. This would be strange if he also downloaded the song with the virus attached to it, but really some people can have the song without being infected, as Sephi displays. I would guess he was up to something similar if Taylor was checking up on him. Now, a huge factor of the stream was a puzzle hidden within its environment and a steady stream of communication from the official LoreFi account. The main idea of the puzzle was that there was this note with a blank Hangman game on it, prompting us to find a 4-letter word to fill it in. Meanwhile, there are stickers with numbers on them on Taylor's TV, the colors of which correlate with the books on the shelf. If we take the first letter of each colored book that corresponds to the color found in the stickers and place them in the order that the numbers would imply, we get the word C-A-L-L, or call, a 4-letter word that fits neatly in the empty Hangman spaces. Now, as of yet, the exact implications of the word call and the 3 pieces combining together with the right heading, altogether shall reveal the beginning of the end, remain elusive. But that's what theorizing is for. As such, I would love to hear your theories as to what this could all be building up to, after you hit the like and subscribe button, of course. From the comments that the LoreFi account was putting out, we also have some extra information to be aware of. The streams are released in chronological order, Cheeks is a hamster for a lore-relevant reason, and there are hints hidden in some of the album covers. Armed with this, let's continue to the final pieces of the story that we have so far. On the topic of album art, the Fairy Lullaby album cover features a small boat in a lake, and just barely visible in the bottom left corner is what appears to be a black trash bag. Now, the newspaper concerning Gregory's disappearance pinned on Taylor's board mentioned that the boy's backpack was found near Mallard Lake, connecting the idea of a lake to Gregory Daniels. The question now is, what is the significance of the empty boat and strange bag, and how might it relate to what happened to Gregory? A different album is also called The Lake House, featuring an image of such a place, once again bringing up a lake. Furthermore, the black bag doesn't merely appear in one cover, but 4 in total, the other 3 displayed on screen. I also want to highlight a trio of album covers and titles that I find to be particularly intriguing. These 3 images are all connected through a very similar style, showcasing what appears to be a snow globe, someone opening some kind of letter, and a locked door. The Snow Globe album is called Answers, which I find specifically interesting because a lot of these albums are simply named after a song found within them, but for this one, that's not the case. The 2 songs currently in it are titled Transmission and The Key, which honestly instantly made me think of LoreFi's motto, Beats will be the key. Furthermore, as you can see on the screen, another one of these images in this style features a locked door, which is something that specifically requires a key, seemingly linking these 2 albums. The art showing someone opening the letter is called Intentions, with 2 tracks called I Will and Set You Free, which can obviously be combined to formulate one coherent sentence. This one is also labeled with a title that does not share a name with one of the songs contained within, the album being called Intentions, which probably correlates directly to the desire of setting someone free. I'm not sure exactly how much direct lore relevance is here, but these albums and tracks caught my attention, and I am interested to hear what other people may think about them. Now we'll transition to the recent update the Chapter 1 stream received and go over what new information was presented there. First off, we have some communications between Taylor and Wing. Did some digging on the Grapevine forums. You probably already got it, but pulled 6 users that downloaded the virus. Looking at it now, not sure how this helps though. I bet one of these is our Gregory. Oh, now you get it. I'm going to keep digging through their posts. Maybe you and your crazy friend can find something. I wish you two would just get along. I'll hit you up with more posts. Okay. This most likely confirms the always probable theory that Gregory had the virus to some extent, and that the hacker was connected to these missing people. And I think this is pretty obvious, but just to make it absolutely clear, the crazy friend here is Ayana/Sephi. There's also a note pinned on her board from a Sam, saying, Hey Tay, you looked pretty upset the other day. I hope it's not about your dad again. I decided to take it upon myself to cheer you up. I put together a mix for you that I think will help. Always here for you, Sam. This both serves as a reminder that Taylor's dad is someone that Taylor resents, as that part of the story is easy to forget when sorting through all the chaos with the virus and missing persons, and to display Sam as an individual that cares deeply for Taylor. Maybe even a potential love interest? We can observe that Taylor has her pickup playlist made by Sam readily available at her desk, and her to-do list now shows the words, "Find Gregory." The last bit of significant changes in the update come in the form of a printed out series of messages from the Grapevine forums. Just downloaded the newest wing drop. Anyone's PC being weird? WTF disharmony is this? Why is there a kidnapping in my song? I just heard the creepy message from a missing kid from Wings of Disharmony. Prank? Did Wing just upload a virus? Virus? Creepy message? Wing, help! They're out there. I know Disharmony doesn't check forums often, but someone should tell him about the virus he uploaded. This gives us some clear evidence that several other people have downloaded the song and subsequent virus, many of which are instinctively mad at Wing, blaming the user for the virus now infecting their devices. This whole case extends far beyond just Taylor and her friend and is clearly a much bigger operation, whatever the intended outcome actually is. Perhaps the most exciting part of my investigation to LoreFi thus far, showrunner Dan reached out to me, foretelling that some special lore would be coming my way, as well as to the other big YouTube LoreFi theorists, Dacia, ISO, and Starfinity. This arrived in the form of an email, with a body of text and 2 broken links. Turns out these links didn't function due to the fact that they were encoded with a cipher, only able to be decoded with a key found by assembling the out-of-place capital letters in the email's text. The key ended up spelling Matthews, a name we will get back to in a moment. Once these links are properly deciphered, they lead us to 2 unlisted YouTube videos where we encounter some very interesting discoveries. The first is called The Pile, the description reading as follows. This recording was found in connection with the Murphy case. It shows incredible amounts of negligence and incompetence. An internal investigation has started, and I will be questioning them this afternoon. Here is the audio that awaits us in the video.
I swear this generation is screwed.
Another prank?
Another prank. Message in a song they downloaded.
Off a grapevine? Doesn't she know that's illegal?
I mean, that's what I said to get her to back down. Not that we're gonna arrest some teenager because they downloaded Lanky Park.
Lincoln Park.
Sure.
Maybe we should be arresting them at this point. Can I see the report?
Be my guest.
This message is from the Daniels case.
And your point?
Well, it's the first message from the kid and we just found the backpack. It seems suspicious.
It's all just a desperate attempt at 15 minutes of fame. We found the backpack. It makes the news. Kids wanting attention, make a creepy message and put it in a song.
You're probably right.
Still?
Should we get Detective Matthews involved?
Hell no! I'm still pissed about the first one of these he investigated. Kid ended up perfectly fine, and I wasted my whole weekend outside his house. No way I'm gonna waste this weekend at a stakeout when I should be out on the water.
But if...
No but-ifs. Throw it in the pile with the others. Otherwise, I'll make sure your weekend is spent babysitting a kid.
No way I'm missing the game against New York.
Then, the pile it is. Now let's go get some lunch.
First impressions is obviously that the police are not taking the situation seriously at all, even in light of the still developing case of Gregory Daniels. This explains Taylor's evident distrust of the police and why she has taken steps to begin investigating herself. A major reveal here is that the name Matthews belongs to a detective associated with the police. Seeing as these 2 negligent cops want to keep it away from him, I'm prompted to believe that Matthews is a bit more of a proactive and good-natured person than these guys, and I suspect they will serve as a force of good in all of this once they get properly involved in the story. Something else to note is that the description of this video is clearly written from the perspective of an in-universe character, confirming that this audio log is canon to LoreFi and that people are aware of the incompetence of the 2 officers, and someone in particular will be questioning them in light of an internal investigation. I am tempted to wonder if this is from the perspective of Matthews himself, but it's highly possible it's from an unnamed person working in internal affairs. Another thing of note within the video is that multiple calls like this have been occurring, and Matthews even followed up on one before, only for the kid to be completely fine. This works into the previous hints in the series that this virus and hacker is targeting far more people than we originally imagined. The second video is called Encouragement, the description of which reading, "The following is a lifted voice message from the head of local band Remnant in regards to the Murphy case. The recipient of the message is a close friend to the victim and currently being investigated." Remnant is the name of a band that's been present in LoreFi since the very beginning, with Taylor clearly being a big fan and even submitting work in an album cover art contest for them. Here's what goes down in this one.
You have 1 new message.
Hey, Ayana, this is Reese from Remnant. Got your number from Caleb. So I gave the track a listen, and honestly, you really have something here. Even played it for the rest of the guys, and definitely think you got a lot of potential. I'm not sure if you're working our show next week, but if you are, let's chat after. I have some ideas about how to take this song to the next level. Alright, later.
We are immediately introduced to a new character named Reese, a member of Remnant. It is also quickly revealed that the close friend mentioned in the description is Ayana, who, as previously discussed, is the real-life name of Sephi. Now it makes sense why they were pressuring us to figure out that identity so much earlier on. It looks as though Remnant was really intrigued by a song Ayana sent them and wishes to be in contact with her concerning developing it. This must be a dream come true for Ayana. She's probably kicking herself that she let this call go to the answering machine. The other name drop in this video is Caleb, who must be connected to Ayana in some way if he was able to give Reese her number. Once again, the description was written from the perspective of an in-universe character mentioning the Murphy case. Murphy, of course, being the last name of Taylor. Alright, so I'm back. It's been a while since consistent Playmaster Plus content came out, and that is purely due to an overload of school, work, and writing that has been dominating my life recently. This video should mark the return of the weekly schedule with summer, and we're kicking it off with another dive into the story running in the background of some chill lo-fi beats. I want to jump right into the new stuff, so if you want a recap of all that's been discovered already, please feel free to hop back to one of my previous videos, all of which can be found in a playlist linked in the description. As for now, we're going to begin with the update to the first installment in the trilogy of 24/7 streams. We can now see some Grapevine forum logs on the board, with several users discussing their favorite lo-fi bands that we've seen releasing music over the course of LoreFi's lifespan. It seems lo-fi is very popular in this universe. It is important to note the emphasis on the bands being local that the users put. Then of course, we get some dialogue. Taylor and Wing discuss back and forth throughout the episode. All of the bands in these posts are local bands. You in the Chicago area? Yeah. Wait, are you? Yeah. Okay. This might make things easier. How do you mean? I need to put the virus back on my computer with internet, which means whoever this bastard is will be able to see my system and messages again. Unless we meet in person. Boom. Exactly. Wipe my computer clean, reinstall the virus, then PWN this guy. Thanks, Wing. Andrew, by the way. Taylor. Nice to officially meet you, Andrew. So, Wing, or Andrew apparently, lives in the Chicago area just like Taylor. While the plan is supposedly to meet up in person in order to begin taking down the hacker, I'm not convinced we can trust Wing on this. Remember, as we know from the secret videos we went through last time, at some point in the future of the timeline, something bad happens to Taylor, something a Detective Matthews is looking into. I wouldn't be surprised if where things start to go wrong are with this meetup with Wing. The Sleepy Time stream has also received 2 updates since last time we talked about it. There is now a birthday card on Taylor's bedside table, an invitation to Doug's birthday party on 7/13. Doug is the boy Taylor seems to have a crush on from the Valentine's post, and there's a sticky note with hearts next to the birthday invitation here, further solidifying this notion. It should be noted that 7/13 is the same date as one of the tickets to Remnant that Taylor has. Here are the new messages between Wing and Sephi. Did you wipe it? Only because Perplexa told me. So you found it? No! Like I said, my version is clean. Well, the one you sent me wasn't. Huh? I found the floppy you sent me. It's basically the only floppy I ever got. Easy to find. Well, I think one of us may be lying. I think one of us just may be. Let's cut the BS. I don't trust you. I don't know your angle, but if you're messing with Perplexa, you have another thing coming. Let's. I don't trust you. This floppy has the damn message on it. So either you're messing with your friend and making me an accomplice, or... I can't prove you're doing this, so... For now, keep digging. But my eye is on you. Same. It seems someone here has to be untrustworthy. It doesn't seem like both these claims can coexist, yet I find it strange that if Wing really is the liar here, that he bothers to argue with Sephi herself about it. Coming up, we see both of them message Taylor directly, which I would imagine would have been a better play for Wing to do initially instead of argue back and forth with Sephi, the person who would know she isn't lying if she's being truthful. I don't know, something about it feels weird. Something about Wing's conduct has rubbed me the wrong way if he truly is trying to be nefarious, but things just keep getting stacked against him as we go on in this video, as you'll soon come to see. On that note, if we conduct the thought experiment that Sephi is the one lying, it seems kinda dumb to essentially just hand Wing ammunition against you by giving him a floppy disk with the virus and then denying it. A workaround, I guess, is that Sephi is simply ignorant to something that is going on and genuinely believes what she says despite it not being the actual truth. Maybe it's possible that the floppy disk could have attained the virus after leaving Sephi's possession but before Wing acquired it? That feels weird too. The previous messages really begins the rift of suspicion and distrust between these characters that continues on in the second update. Taylor, I can't with Sephi. Damn, go to bed early. Look, she just keeps roadblocking me here. The more I dig into this virus, the clearer it is that it's dangerous. I think it's leaking info. She is constantly putting our investigation at risk. I doubt she wiped her computer, so the virus must still be feeding the info. I don't know how well you know her, if she's just an online friend or whatever. Either way, watch your back. With Sephi's messages saying, I don't trust Wing. Sorry, bet you're asleep now. He keeps trying to take control of this whole thing. And he knows a bunch about computers. I think he's manipulating us. Heck, he could be some 40-year-old dude in his mom's killer basement. You know what I mean. We don't know this guy, so watch your back. Obviously, these two message instances are meant to parallel each other, with both Sephi and Wing expressing their distrust of one another to Taylor. I would say this is meant to set up a small whodunit scenario with confusion as to who is actually harboring malicious intent, but I think one candidate can be easily knocked off the suspect list, at least for this instance, that being Sephi. With keyboard behaviors being realistically meaningless evidence in this scenario, given that anybody can put on an act behind a keyboard, in order to absolve someone, we have to look at more supplementary evidence. Now, last time we discussed LoreFi, I brought up a theory presented by Kwire, which I found to be really likely, that being that Sephi and Ayana are actually one and the same, the evidence given in that original video. Seeing as Ayana's signature is in Taylor's yearbook, that means the two know each other in real life for sure, which automatically makes her more trustworthy than Wing in my opinion. At the very least, Taylor would know Sephi's identity, whereas, as Sephi warns, Wing could be anybody with the information we have on him at this point. Keep that in mind going forward. I will say, however, there's a good level of concern Wing keeps expressing for all of this, which could easily all be an act. It just sometimes feels like he does and says things that aren't fully necessary if he is trying to sneak around. Perhaps the goal could be to drive a rift between Taylor and Sephi in order to isolate Taylor's trust and give him a better opportunity to strike here. Pause. This wasn't originally in the script, but it came to my mind and I wanted to say something about it despite the fact that I'm not super sure. Under that idea that I just mentioned above, it might give some insight into the reasoning behind the glitching messages found in the fall collection of the LoreFi prologue, something that's confused me for a while. Not only do I not know how changing a message after receiving it would work, but I had no idea to what end someone would be doing it. Now, if Wing here is trying to cause a rift in Sephi's and Taylor's relationship, maybe that is trying to be done in subtle ways with her other friends as well, through purposely causing issues of miscommunication and confusion. Maybe the explanation for the why of the glitching messages and Wing's interactions with both Sephi and Taylor is all a subtle ploy to isolate Taylor and make her a more vulnerable victim. The updates of the gaming/coding stream are really interesting, as they came with a fun puzzle to solve and some significant additions to the story as well. First, just some messages from friends. From AR Vulpix, did you get the mix I dropped off? Hopefully it'll cheer you up and hype you up for Remnant. From Timinator, time for the monthly ask, are you sure you don't want to do a panel for the comic? And from Kev, hey, can you comment again? Taylor's online friends are sending her messages to no replies that we see, something they begin to notice later on. Last time we investigated this stream, there was the hangman puzzle that led to the word call, and once again, there's a puzzle to solve. Now, I'm more of a narrative solver than a code cracker, so for these solutions I get a lot of help from the community documents that many smart people in the LoreFi section in the Game Theory Discord are always working on. Now, let's discuss the tap clue. There's a new post-it note which reads the following. We compare this with the new expanded set of games on the shelf. Note that they are separated into 2 shelves, 10 books each, as the times 10 would imply on the sticky note. Every book title can then be interpreted as a number, either directly stated in the title or hinted at by phrases in the title. If you compile all the numbers, you'll get these following numbers. The post-it note also contains the word tap, which is probably a hint towards the tap code cipher, also hinted at the game tap tap tap, indicating 4. If you convert each of the numbers into their corresponding amount of dots and tap code, we then get the word transcript. Both the words call and transcript will be very important later on. In the second update for the gaming stream, we once again have a couple of messages to see, once again from Taylor's wider circle of friends who are expressing their concern given that she hasn't checked in with them for multiple weeks. Timinator, are we okay? It's weird for you to just disappear, even if it's only for a couple of weeks. Kev, you good? Where are you at these days? Clearly, Taylor's been inactive online, which makes sense given that she has been taking precautions against her digital stalker lately. The puzzle present in this update comes in the form of a checkers board. By taking each row of the checkerboard sequentially with a checker in place indicating a 1 for binary code and an empty square indicating 0 for binary code, we get that mess of numbers for binary, which then can translate into this smaller mess of numbers. By taking all these pieces and a bit.ly link as indicated by the game cartridge called literally bit.ly's adventures, we then follow the instructions in the coded description and we get a chain for all these pieces and combine it with the bit.ly heading and find a link. This leads to the following YouTube video aptly titled Call Transcript 060801 regarding a conversation between Taylor's parents. This is huge, as we get names and voices for both her parents and a better idea of their relationship. Here's the conversation.
Hello?
Hey, honey.
Oh, hi. Should I start dinner?
No, that's why I'm calling.
Seriously, again?
Robert.
Sorry. I'm not mad at Dawn. The situation is frustrating.
I know, but we need this.
Yeah.
Any luck today?
I sent in applications, okay?
I'm just asking if you had any bites.
I sent it out yesterday, Martha. Jesus. They're not gonna get back in a day.
Don't take that tone with
You
me.
act like I'm not trying.
Taylor can hear you. Robert, I know you're trying. It's like you said, the situation is frustrating.
Yeah. I'm gonna figure this out. I have some other, options. Still have a month of unemployment left, too.
A month is plenty of time. 1 sec. Yeah. Of course. Right away. I gotta go.
Right. I'll get Taylor fed, just don't work too long. I love you.
Love you. Be right there. Be home as soon as I can.
Sure. Great friggin' job, Robert. Nice one.
This is clearly displaying the rift that was forming in Taylor's parents due to the stresses of employment, the lack thereof, and trying to live a married life through all of it. Her dad is struggling to find a job while her mother is overworked, creating a difficult dynamic of frustration brewing between them despite the fact that they probably both want to cultivate a situation that's best for the family. At least that's what it sounds like. This kind of thing can tragically put wedges into families and spiral them into dysfunction if a bitterness forms and continues to grow unresolved. With Robert being crossed out of a photo and Taylor's insistence that she doesn't want him around, I don't think things ended up going too well in regards to her parents' relationship. Whatever goes on to transpire between Martha and Robert, Taylor now believes that her dad is firmly in the wrong, given that we've clearly seen she harbors an enmity towards him. With her dad attempting to reach out in earlier installments, claiming that her mother is not innocent in how things turned out, we'll have to keep a close eye on how the Murphy family drama continues to unfold. Those are probably the most impactful lore that has dropped in the past couple of months, but we have several smaller things to sort through now as well. Several shorts have released with small things to solve hidden in their titles. However, I don't need to talk much about this given that they lead to a secret video that I was given early access to and already covered in my previous video. What is new are the clues present throughout the Vibe videos LoreFi has been releasing as of late. In the Chillcraft video, letters will occasionally appear in the torch that can be used to get Genesis 6:5. This is another Bible verse, as the series is used several times to convey themes now. This one reading that, "And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." This is on tune with the repetition of the idea of sinning and wrongdoing throughout the religious allusions of the series thus far. In the Escape Reality compilation, this string of letters in the description is encrypted using base 64, as hinted at in the video tags, and decrypts to, "She cannot escape me." Clearly the hacker/stalker referring to Taylor. In the Every Theorist theme compilation, the strings of 1s and 0s in the description is a modified tab code using the number of 0s to show the number of spaces down, broken by a 1 to swap to a cross, then a double space to move to the next letter. The code is this mess of numbers, and that decrypts to, "Find Gregory, save Taylor." Perhaps the mission of Detective Matthews? As the sections of the Theorist logo light up, a word is faintly visible in each segment. The video loops and these are visible multiple times, and in order of appearance these make the phrase, "She needs your help," most definitely pertaining to Taylor and the dangerous situation she has found herself in. Finally, we have the Coffee Break compilation. In the description we see this. Using a Caesar cipher with a shift of 12 for decoding gives us, "I'm closing in." I would take this to be an ominous phrase that reflects the stalker/hacker getting closer to achieving their goal with Taylor. In addition to all of this, 3 animatics have released showcasing different elements of the LoreFi world. First, let's look at the escape animatic where, when Taylor is away, Cheeks makes his move. His goal, Freedom. Sweet, sweet freedom. After the saga of Cheek's attempted escape concludes, we see Wing pressing to meet with Taylor and Seffi next week, meaning the time of their in-person gathering is soon approaching for them, potentially foreboding if this truly is when the bad stuff goes down. The window animatic shows something that's been hinted at for a while. The description to this one says, "It's been quite some time since Taylor's computer was infected, but she removed the virus. So, she should be safe, right? Right? I wouldn't count on it." Finally, we get confirmation that Taylor is being stalked physically as well, with someone going so far as to taunt her by knocking on her window, then returning to the shadows to continue to creepily observe her. I get the fun of tormenting your victim, but I gotta say, it's not very strategic to bang on someone's window if you don't want to be seen. Now, if I were stalking someone, the hideout animatic is probably the coolest so far. We see a hooded figure in a crappy den filled with music equipment, which makes me somewhat concerned this could be our man Wing. The music creation stuff would fit with what we know of the character, and it harkens back to Seffi's warning that he could be in some killer basement, which this room is very reminiscent of. While the hooded man initially seems quite frustrated at discovering he has lost connection to Taylor's app cache, he immediately falls into a fit of evil laughter. Which, again, if he is Wing, then he is probably planning to do something bad when they all finally meet up in person, which would be pretty funny to a psychotic person. A "you may think you're safe, but you're not" situation. It's also worth noting that the description, in distorted text, says, "I will not be stopped by some insignificant insects," showing how little this guy thinks of the people working against him and how much ego he possesses for himself. Alright guys, so this is an unscripted segment because on the day that my video was supposed to come out, LoreFi released another animatic, something that I knew ahead of time but kinda completely forgot about. So this new animatic is called Lost, the description reading "sometimes what you're looking for is in plain sight." Now that description correlates to the main plot of the little animatic where Taylor misplaced her pen or just forgot where she put it, had to look for it even though it was right there in front of her. Now the main source of information that we care about in this animatic is the calendar in the background that reads June 2003, both confirming the month that this is taking place and, probably more importantly, the year, which most of us were assuming it took place somewhere between 2003 and 2005. I said 2004 for a while, but now we know for sure it's 2003. We can see that on the 11th, she has a note saying meet up at the cafe. At least I believe that says cafe. Yes, it does. And that could be perhaps the in-person meetup that her Wing and Sephi are planning. I don't know, but given that that's the last kind of thing that we were hearing about in the series, that could very much be it. And on the 22nd, she has the Remnant concert. So I don't know. We were wondering if something bad is going to happen in the in-person meetup. Maybe that's going to happen when they meet up at that cafe on the 11th. Maybe that happens at the Remnant concert on the 22nd. We'll have to see how all that goes because we also have the July 13th date on the Remnant tickets too. We're going to have to see where things go and where the whole Taylor Murphy case begins with whatever's going to happen to her goes down. So yeah, I just wanted to include that so to have the most updated information. Also, I'm going to point out, like I said, while the description did correlate to her missing her pen and trying to find it, in this case, the year, something that we've been wanting to know for a long time, the information is in plain sight for us here, kind of being like, oh, haha, what you're looking for is in plain sight, just like in this video. Anyways, that's it, guys. As per usual, a slew of shorts have been released in between the bigger uploads, the 3 shown here leading to the encouragement video, which I already covered as I was given early access to it some time ago. What's really interesting is the next 3 shorts, which when their codes are deciphered, thanks to the good people of the Discord Google Doc for helping with the decoding elements as always, lead to an unlisted video that is entirely new. This one is called The Promoter, the description reading. The following is a recovered lecture recording of a Computer 201 course. While most of the file is corrupted and could not be restored, the following exchange is between a student and a substitute teacher. Mrs. Travers, who requested the sub-record the session, recalls deleting the file because it was hard to listen to a man fail for 45 minutes. It is likely that this file was recovered as a part of Detective Matthews' investigation into the Taylor Murphy case, similar to how the audio from the previous 2 secret videos were used as evidence to investigate prior. While this conversation may seem like it doesn't reveal a whole lot, I think it actually gives a pretty big implication. Here's the audio that we hear.
So that. Okay, wait. Mrs. Travers gonna be back tomorrow, just remember the homework. Andrew, can you stay for a second? Hey, look, I know I'm just the sub here, and it's none of my business, but I noticed you put Grapevine on the classroom computer. Yeah, it's just, if you could remove that before she gets back. Is the silence a yes? And that's the middle finger. Okay, cool. I'll just remove it myself then, Mr. Wing of Disharmony.
From earlier episodes, we already knew Wing of Disharmony was Andrew, but this just proves that the user wasn't lying about his identity as Sephi had initially feared. This does a lot for how I perceive Andrew's character. If you watched my previous videos, you may know that I was highly suspicious of this guy, and even had him as my top suspect for the hacker, suspecting that he was pushing to meet in person in order to conduct nefarious deeds on Taylor and Sephi, who were on his trail. Now that we know he was a high schooler like the other protagonists and was being truthful about his identity, I think I'll take him off the suspect board. Between this new audio and the character designs LoreFi just dropped for both him and Sephi, I think this trio does serve as a group that's working together. The only problem is this leaves us back at a loss to who the hacker really is, something we'll bring up again later in the video. Moving on, the first compilation music video that released since last we covered LoreFi is called Beats for a Rainy Day, where we see a man in an umbrella look out at a body of water. From previous album cover art, we know that it is likely dead bodies are being placed in bags and dumped in the lake, what I assume is the final fate of the kidnappers' victims. The description has a cipher, which translates to, "One day, I'll take her here." The only female character I can imagine this is talking about is Taylor, setting up an ominous foreshadowing of her fate. Next up is the Daydream animatic, which is a fun little animation that features a daydream of what it would be like to watch an action film called Buddy Cops, starring Taylor's pet hamster, Cheeks. Taylor's television is suddenly hacked as the LoreFi duck appears on it, the words confess accompanying the image. Startled, Taylor stares at her calendar, the camera zooming on the meetup at Cafe writing. Now onto the final updates to the trio of 24/7 live streams. As has been the pattern with the study and focus stream, we get new Grapevine posts and a message dialogue. On the Grapevine boards, grabbed tickets as soon as I could. First show for their first tour. No better venue to see the Velvet Skyline. Hopefully we see some of you Friday. I'm seeing the players this weekend, dude. So excited. Friends gave me an early Christmas gift. Seeing them next Saturday. Can't wait to hear it all live this Sunday. And from the messages between Taylor and Sephi, it is a bad idea. What? Using the virus to get the hacker. I think he can do it though. Why? Because he knows computers? Hacking is still a complicated thing to do. We have a lot of potential Gregory users thanks to him. Besides, I don't think we can do half of what he's been talking about. I mean, you can find most with just research, but yeah. I just don't want you to get in trouble or hurt. I'm fine. Nothing weird has happened for a while. Unless Wing does something. But if we can help Gregory, we need to try and save him. Would you worry about yourself for once, LOL? Seriously, I'm fine. Okay. Just please let me know if you want me to come over. Yeah, of course. Thank. This exchange once again highlights Taylor's compulsion to help people even at her own expense, something we've seen displayed in lower stakes scenarios in prior installments of the series. There's also now a message that reads, "Who is Gregory Daniels?" on Taylor's board, and combined with the discussion, I think it is safe to assume that Gregory's online presence is one of the Grapevine users listed on the forum discussions. The Sleepy stream only has one real environment update, that being a toy duck left outside Taylor's window, an evident calling card of the hacker who we discovered knows where Taylor lives last time. Messaging between Sephi and Wing has also been updated. WTF? Did you get one? It's on my desk right now. What do we do? Police? This is a police thing, right? Taylor already did. Told her they don't investigate pranks. Didn't even listen to her. This is so effed. Do you think Tay got one? Definitely. Expletive. Evidence. What? We need hard evidence. Tay and I think we might be able to find some more info at the library. I've almost reverse engineered this virus. Maybe instead of messing with him, I pull as much data from his computer as I can. What did yours say? Essentially that he accepts my challenge. The wager? Taylor Murphy's life. Exactly. We need to figure this out. Agreed. And if it ends up being you, I'll end you. Well, once I hack this guy, you owe me the biggest apology. Alright, show me what you got. I imagine what Anna and Andrew both got was a toy duck of their own, which seems to have been accompanied by a message. The hacker is roping them into a game with the stakes being Taylor Murphy's life, and clearly, time is running out. The only thing I could find that's new from the gaming stream was a message from AR Vulpix that reads, "Want to hang before you head to your dad's, just to get a bit of sanity?" We haven't seen a whole lot about Taylor trying to make amends with her father, as there has been a clear rift between them from the very beginning, but it seems she has finally agreed to meet with him in person to presumably talk about things. With everything that's happening, I'm not confident Taylor will get this chance, though. And now we finally arrived at the finale animatic, titled Gift, with the accompanying description of, Taylor received a fun new gift. It begins as a normal day, with Taylor bringing out the trash. However, things take a dark turn when she discovers the duck left on her yard, flipping it over to reveal the threatening message of, "You're next." Taylor hardly has time to react, as the screen goes dark and we hear sounds of struggle, complete with rough sounds of male grunting and a terrified scream from Taylor, followed by the taking off of a vehicle. Clearly, Taylor has just been abducted right in front of her own home. The last we see from the animatic is a lone toy duck resting on the floor of what is presumably Taylor's room, with what I assume is her mother calling out for her, slowly opening the door, only to find that her daughter has become another missing person. With that, LoreFi announced its indefinite hiatus, making this tragic turn of events essentially the conclusion, at least for now. However, we would still get one more music compilation with an interesting description. In the lo-fi music to fall asleep to video, we get a cipher that decodes into "with my last breath." This sentence, paired with a figure in the looped animation that is at least similar to a person falling underwater, I think this is just another implication towards the final resting place of the abducted people, being the reappearing lake. The phrase in the description perhaps adds an even darker layer to this whole thing, if it implies that they were drowned, rather than being swiftly murdered and thrown into the lake already dead. It would indeed be a terrible fate to be kidnapped, forced to confess something, then bound into a bag and drowned in the lake. Imagining something like this happening to Taylor is not fun at all. I have some closing thoughts and theories to discuss before the end of this video, but I wanted to do something fun for this last one and include some theories from my viewers. This was done through my Discord server and my livestream chats. Some theories from OBP messaged through my Discord server. 1. LoreFi centers around thematic material of sinning, confessing, and twisted consequences of stealing. I think this is simply a pretty correct analysis of what the series has delivered us, both in terms of the hacker being obsessed with confessions and the hidden Bible verses that reinforce such themes throughout. 2. Gregory tricked others into stealing lo-fi music with him. This one is interesting, as it places quite a bit of fault for the fates of the other missing people on poor Gregory here. However, I wouldn't be shocked to learn that he either purposely or inadvertently, in a non-malicious manner of course, convinced other children to steal music along with him. 3. Cheeks has also been taken or killed. This is incredibly tragic and I hope is not the case, but OBP cites Cheeks being absent from the banner as well as Taylor to be evidence for this, perhaps the pet being used as some kind of leverage or a way to torture Taylor. 4. The hacker can/will also hack into concert music as well. This is just speculation of course, but it would be haunting to be in a concert crowd and suddenly a creepy duck logo takes over and yells at you about confessing something to the whole crowd. Next up, we have some theories from Shades & Co., which was mentioned through my YouTube live chat during a stream. 1. The story, if it continues, will shift perspectives to other characters. I think this is very likely. If the story is to ever see a revival, I personally think we will see chapters from Ayana's and Andrew's perspectives. 2. Taylor is not dead, rather kidnapped for symbolism reasons and perhaps drugged or otherwise unconscious. I think this is quite possible, given that we know Gregory is forced to confess on an audio recording, implying that the hacker and kidnapper is trying to play at some grander message to be communicated rather than just swiftly killing victims. 3. Matthews adopts Cheeks in Taylor's absence, which would parallel buddy cops. I actually think this is a really cute theory, even though it is entirely speculation. Cheeks is seen as being the partner of a cop in the show that appeared as a daydream, and it would be super cool if this is meant to signify that Detective Matthews took in Cheeks to take care of him while Taylor is missing. Thanks to the awesome viewers and Discord members for submitting those theories. Now, for my closing thoughts on the LoreFi ARG. I don't think it's necessarily a criticism to say that the story ended abruptly and left us with so much unanswered or left in the open. Due to this, I really hope we can someday see a resurrection of the LoreFi story, but for now, we're left to put pieces together where we can. And given that I've said just about the most about what I can say overall, this final section will be devoted to going over what I find to be the most pressing questions left in LoreFi. First, let's address the identity of the main villain, the hacker, stalker, and kidnapper. As mentioned earlier, I think Wing is absolved due to his character model looking different from the creepy guy seen in Hideout, and the fact that he's still in high school. The other major suspect I've seen tossed around is Taylor's father, but I don't think it's him for a variety of reasons. First off, it would be way too obvious to have the hidden villain be the guy we see having a skull drawn over his face from the very beginning. Clearly he would be one of the first, at least conceptual suspects before any other information arrives. Furthermore, he is seen as trying to reach out and set up a time to meet with Taylor, something we know eventually happens thanks to Vulpix, and we even see him as not a total jerk in the phone call audio, where the apparent divorce between him and Rebecca, Taylor's mother, stemmed from commonly seen relationship issues that just never got resolved. None of this is indicative of villainy to the extent we see from the hacker, and we also know that the hacker was boasting about finding Taylor specifically, and I would assume that Taylor's own father would have known where she and her mother lived, probably from the start. However, beyond that, the suspects or the hacker being any of the characters we know dissolves into speculation. As such, at this moment in time, I don't think the hacker is any pre-existing character we've met in the series, instead just a separate villain out there perpetrating the darker parts of the story. On the topic of the villain, why are they doing this? Well, we get very little elaboration on the specifics of his motivations, but what we do have all centers around confessing wrongdoing, the idea of sinning, stealing, and lying, often portrayed through biblical verses that condemn such things. The common thread between those that have met whatever fate awaits them at the hands of the hacker seems to be that they were all stealing music in some way and downloaded the virus as a byproduct, hence getting in the sights of the hacker. Given Gregory's message that he was forced to record, it seems that the abductor wants to spread a type of message, that seeming to be a twisted warning of the consequences that he will ensure happens to those that commit even a relatively small wrongdoing, such as illegally acquiring music. Now, that seems like a very small transgression to warrant kidnapping and potential murder, perhaps even as violent as the death of drowning, but this whole plot thread could very well be a grave depiction of the danger that the rise of the internet posed to common people, that being the opportunities absolutely psychotic people have to inflict harm for whatever reason they have convinced themselves of. We clearly see that Gregory has been missing for multiple months, which, in any real-world case, would look incredibly grim for his chances of remaining alive. Under this line of reasoning, I'd have to say that Gregory, Taylor, and the other victims are pretty well dead. What I'll say that pertains to everything in this video is that any of these conclusions are open for change if the story were to ever continue and reveal more information. But at the moment, I am forced to work with what I have, and that is loose ends and an ambiguous story. But, this being the case, what was the point of all this? What is the overarching story, even if this does go on to serve as the permanent ending? Well, as I briefly mentioned earlier, I think the main theme is the danger that can lurk on even the surface levels of the internet, and the deeply impactful tragedy that bleeds out into the world from the evil and mental illness of even just one man. LoreFi spends a lot of time building up Taylor's personal life through the environment and her online messages, giving us some deep insight into the dynamic of her family, friend groups, personality, interests, struggles, anxieties, even her relationship with her beloved pet hamster. And in light of the finale, all of that ends with Taylor's presumed and undeserving death at the hands of a madman. Entertainment media, whether it be horror or otherwise, sometimes neglects to fully acknowledge the tragedy of the victims of the monster in the source material. But if this finale perseveres as LoreFi's end, then the exact opposite is LoreFi's greatest strength. It highlights just how much is going on in the average person's life, through the lens of a happily geeky high schooler, whose biggest sin was encountering the wrong person at the wrong time. And if we can see that Taylor's life was so full and complex, then it is easy to imagine that Gregory's and the other victims were as well. Their present joys and future dreams were all taken away by the whim of one evil man, who ensured their last moments would be spent in fear and suffering. The tragedy going much further when you consider how devastated any family members and close friends are going to be for the rest of their lives. And the scariest part? The only thing that one has to do for this fate to potentially befall them is download a music file from the wrong website. It's been awesome following LoreFi for the past year, and I've had a ton of fun making these videos along the way. Hearing MattPat say my channel's username was absolutely surreal.
But the idea of people actually, I saw Playmaster the other day.
Given that me and a good friend of mine were fans of game and film theory since childhood, and getting early access to a couple of the secret videos from showrunner Dan was certainly a highlight to remember as well. That's all I have to say for now. The complete collection of LoreFi related content on Playmaster Plus will be compiled into a single video soon, for any of you that want to conveniently relive the entire investigation. I've been the man behind the hat, and until next time, the unknown persists, so the investigation continues.